The guys at What Makes You Tick are giving you a little surprise. It's to ensure that my story doesn't make me look significant. It's to ensure my story makes others feel significant. And I'm a big believer in the idea that the depth of your questions dictates the depth of your relationships. But that also is dependent on the depth of your relationship with yourself. And the mindset behind the community is purpose, peace, profit. And that's the lens through which he looks at everything. And if I had to boil it down to one thing, he has deep presence.
We want to try and find like the best tech leaders in the world, the real builders of business, not necessarily the founders who everyone wants to talk to, but the true builders of those businesses. He'd watched the podcast that we did together to prepare for the interview. And he's like, I thought you'd love to know. I'm like, I absolutely love to know that.
This concept of instant gratification, because if we can receive restaurant ready food in 20 minutes or less, why can't the same be for our desires? Patience, for me, the way I see it, creates a lack of presence, because in the moment, we're not focused on being in the moment.
How do you define winning and it working is a really big part of that.
It depends on the awareness of the leader. It depends on their energy, their mindset, how they are viewing things. Because if they're like, no, you need to make $200 a day, every single day, well, that mindset that we're speaking about will get suffocated in an environment like that. That behavior, the difference, the delta, I really feel for often salespeople in those environments is huge.
Yeah.
I'm really excited.
So I'm your first in-person experience. If it's bad, it'll be your last.
We have no bar.
If this is bad, I'll know, because you're like, we've gone back to Zoom.
Yeah,
We're not
only
doing
Zoom.
this anymore.
Imagine having access to a tribe of mentors. Leaders that you might have never heard of, but in just an hour, you'll know their unfiltered career story. The bets they took, decisions they made, and the lessons that they learned along the way.
Welcome to the What Makes You Tick podcast.
The guys at What Makes You Tick are giving you a little surprise. If you can comment book, well, actually, if you're one of the first 5 to comment book on this episode, then they are going to gift you a free copy of my book, Relationship Currency. So do it, and I'll see you on the other side.
Ravi, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you with us in person. This is our first in-person guest.
We did it, man.
We did it.
We did it.
So thank you so much for joining. Rich, my friend, in person.
I know, I'm really excited.
So I'm your first in-person experience. If it's bad, it'll be your last.
We have
So
no
if this is bad, I'll know, because you're like, we've gone back to Zoom.
Yeah,
we're not
only
doing
Zoom.
this anymore.
Yeah, and people are like, do you do in person? We don't like to talk about it.
Yeah.
No, we were really excited because we were talking in the green room.
Yeah.
The actual real green room, not the Riverside one.
Yeah,
the
not
actual
what we
green
just
room.
say. We say green room. We just mean like in our podcast studios. We never done one in person, and we wanted to do it for a long time because it's better to be face to face. Belly to belly selling is a term I learned recently. This is
That's
like
so
belly to belly
cringy. Who
podcasting.
said that? Where did you learn that
I don't
from?
know. There's no source. I could probably steal it.
Belly
anyone
to
wants it.
belly selling. And is
Belly
that the
to
idea
belly.
of human
It's
connection?
like,
or?
everyone talks about IRL, like in real life. I think it's like
I don't know.
the human connection side.
Yeah.
So, and we were talking about how we met Ravi, and it was because Jacob Warwick, I was asking him like who are his favorite influences, and he said you. And particularly he talked about your storytelling framework. And I was talking about a testimonial that we got, which I thought was a story, which wasn't a story, which we'll touch on, which I'm trying to incorporate. I'm going to probably redo it after we've spoken today. And then Stephen Uman also, when we did a podcast recently, mentioned you and your book. And I was like, right, I've just got to go and send the DM and see if it works. So we've made it happen. So I'm so excited to not only bring Ravi to our podcast, to our listeners, but also I just think to the world, because I don't know how many people know about your book, but I think it should be more always. And I want to just like help to push out into the world, because we've been spending the last weeks listening to it, getting the books.
Thank you, my friend.
And I'm just so excited about the journey. So thanks so much.
I appreciate it, my friend. And I'm glad that the first line in the audiobook connected with you. I don't know if it connects with my mum as much. She goes, I don't sound like that. I'm like, listen, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but people like it. So it's, I was speaking in North Carolina last week, and in the first 60 seconds, I find a way to slip in the Indian accent, and it always connects. My mum's like, I'm so embarrassed, but I think she kind of loves it. So I don't know.
It was very authentic, though. I believed it. I believed it. And I was like, my mum would also do the same thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Right?
100%.
It's been practiced for decades. That's why. Decades. But there we go. There we go.
So, Ravi, what makes you tick?
What makes me tick? Good people, good conversation, and individuals who you connect with, which allow you to see what's possible for yourself.
When you think back recently, is there anyone you've met that fits that?
I was in North Carolina last week. So I was speaking at a men's retreat and attending it. It's led by my friend, mentor, and client, and he's an individual who embodies that. And the mindset behind the community is purpose, peace, profit. And that's the lens through which he looks at everything. But when you connect with him, you can feel his energy. It's something different. It's something different. When he communicates, you can feel every single word hitting you like a bullet. And when, even from the way he hugs you, man, I'm like, oh man, this feels different than when you connect with people. And if I had to boil it down to one thing, he has deep presence.
What do you mean by that?
When he's with you, he can make you feel like there's no one else in the room. It's just you two. He remembers things from a conversation that you had 6 months ago. He remembers the names of family members, or he just remembers the details. But when he's with you, you can feel that he's fully with you. And I just deeply believe that that's becoming a lost art. Would you not feel that?
Yeah, we're a lot more
Or
distracted.
do you not feel that?
We're a lot more distracted. Right? It's so easy to be in the room with someone, but your phone is pinging and pinging and pinging, and your Apple Watch is pinging and pinging and pinging, and your mind is going different places. But I think that focusing on one thing, one person, one moment, I think is definitely getting lost.
Who is the person that you both last met who made you feel like that? You were like, whoa, there's something about this person's aura and energy. I'm just magnetized by it.
I feel like I get that quite a bit. And I think because we go looking for it. So with the podcast, when we started 3 years ago, we released our first episode. It came up on like YouTube as that little notification. And I was like, we've been a bit consistent here. And we want to try and find like the best tech leaders in the world. The real builders of business, not necessarily the founders who everyone wants to talk to, who like they naturally get all the gravity. But the true builders of those businesses, who were actually the people who recruited the teams and brought them into the mission, maybe got them to change role, got them to believe in them, believe in the business, stay, grow, develop, like all that stuff, that the glue of a real business and the foundations. We call them the entrepreneurs. And so I think because we've gone out looking for that, we've managed to find some ridiculous people who are just like the most incredible human beings, but all just started as a DJ or an SDR or like a journalist or some kind of they never went out to go and I'm going to be a leader of a tech business or even a leader of people, but they've just like found their way. And there's like patterns that we've seen that make them not only achieve the goals that they want to achieve, but bring people on the journey with them. So I think that kind of like the present side, I don't think a lot of these builders of businesses could do that and get the talent that they need to go and build a business, particularly at the early stage when it's so blimming difficult, without having that kind of magnetic energy. So it's a lot of our guests I feel that way about. And that's why it's like being the greatest privilege that we've had as a team, is to go and like find these people and then call them friends. And we just got like little messages. Like today we got a message from a guy called David DePaula. He's like, I just interviewed a French sales engineer and he'd watched the podcast that we did together to prepare for the interview. And he's like, I thought you'd love to know. I'm like, I absolutely love to know that. Because imagine how much he can stand out in the market when he's interviewing talent, and they can go and Google his name, the podcast comes up, and they can actually learn for an hour about the human and their story rather than the person with the job title. So I think that's kind of like that, bringing that human connection that makes people feel that way, engaged, is what we kind of look for on purpose.
And people are going to want to work for someone like him
Exactly.
if they are deeply connected to his story.
Yeah.
Right. And if they trust him.
Yeah. I wonder how much, you said like if it's a bit of a lost art. It reminds me there was a Brian Tracy video from like my early sales
Okay.
in like 2008 or something.
Sure.
And he talks about specializing, making people feel important. And I was reflecting on this the other day. Very few people ask interesting questions or conscious questions. If they ask any questions at all, and I'm really aware of it now if someone doesn't ask questions, but maybe they're just not interested. So I don't find them interesting, and like that deep curiosity. So I wonder, when you say you think it's a lost art, do you feel like what's the root cause of that?
So I understand the question. Is the question, why do I feel that being intentional and having presence is a lost art? Is that?
Yeah. Why do you think that this like deep connection and building of presence has become a lost art? What's actually like underneath why that's happening?
Before I answer that, it's funny you talk about the concept of when you speak to people and you notice when others don't ask you questions.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, in sales, when you're on a call, you'll have something recording and it will say you spoke for 80% of the time. In my conversation, sometimes that happens in my mind where I'm like, I spoke for X. I asked X many questions and my talk time was this. Bad. But why do I feel like it's a lost presence, or rather presence is being lost? I actually talk about this in the book, and I believe that it's grounded in a desire for instant gratification, the desire for wanting results overnight. And I'm a big believer in the idea that if you receive something overnight, you also can lose it overnight, right?
Yeah.
But it's this concept of instant gratification, because if we can receive restaurant ready food in 20 minutes or less, why can't the same be for our desires? Meaning that sale or that promotion or that business that we want to fly. So when that doesn't occur overnight, it creates impatience. And that impatience, for me, the way I see it, creates a lack of presence, because in the moment, we're not focused on being in the moment. I'm thinking about what can I do in this moment to get Tolu to say this, which takes me one step closer to this. And then it's filled with hidden agendas. Once again, instant gratification. So I believe that's the real villain of our story today. Instant gratification.
I think that's so interesting, because how often does it work? Right. So, when you order Deliveroo, 90% of the time you order it, it comes. But in that scenario, how often does doing those things actually get people to the outcome that they're looking for?
Well, let me ask you this. How many times in life have you, and I think we can all put our hands up to this, have we taken a shortcut and we've gone, oh my, it worked. It actually worked, but there wasn't longevity in the end result.
Yeah.
And it kind of worked.
Yeah.
But we both know that, or the three of us know in that moment, that we took a shortcut. And actually, if we had played the long game, the results would have been long lasting. And if we had played the long game, then we would know how to repeat that result. And if we would have played the long game, then we would have actually earned the relationship. But instead, maybe it felt like a transaction or a transaction. But I think it can work for some, but then the question is at what cost? So I won't mention any names, but you can often see high profile CEOs making certain decisions and it's for profit. It's not for the people. So what happens in the short term, profits go up, but then there's an attrition in the executive team. People are talking bad about them on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, and their culture starts to become one of disconnection, a lack of engagement, distrust. So in the long term, it hurts them. So that's what I mean. It may work in some senses, but once again, if it's received overnight, then it can leave overnight.
Yeah.
I think it also depends on how you define a win and how you define it working, right? Are we looking longevity, 10 years, my relationships are still intact? Are we looking, okay, I signed a deal, I did this. I think how do you define winning and it working is a really big part of that too.
And what's coming up for me as you were saying that was the example of somebody who goes viral overnight on social media on their first post. They're like, it was an accident. How do I reproduce? And it's funny. It's funny. It's this, I feel it's about holding those two energies at the same time, which is, yes, desiring something better for ourselves and our families and our lives, wanting it all, but detaching from the outcome in the moment. And we've seen it before when a salesperson needs to hit their quota at the end of the month and they are doing everything they can to discount and just get you in that moment to say yes. But how does it make you feel on the receiving end? And it doesn't win or rather, good point. We need to define win, but it doesn't earn the relationship in that moment. So
what do you see as the difference between winning and earning? Because it's something you talk about a bit in the book as well.
I feel as though this is subjective, and the word win will mean different things to different people. And I'm curious to know what comes up for you. But instantly, when you said that, it came up for me. What came up for me was the concept of zero-sum game. That I think often some people will feel, I've won. There's a pie. A slice got taken out for Tolu. Damn, there's less for me. He won. But I don't see it that way personally. I don't feel that's a mindset grounded in abundance. But often I think that's how winning and losing is seen. Is I've won, you've lost. That's that. But, and this is funny, I'm thinking about a clip I saw on Instagram the other day. I forgot his name. He's a basketball player in the US, Giannis something. He's talking to a reporter
about the season, and when they were like, you didn't win.
You didn't win.
Yeah.
You didn't win.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, hold on. Every single year, my friend, as a reporter, do you get a promotion? So is that a win? Is that a loss? Is that a failure? And he uses this beautiful analogy to compare two different things to show the similarities and clarify his point. And I haven't seen the entirety of the clip, but it sounds as though the reporter's like, yeah, okay, I kind of get what you're saying. So that's what comes up for me. What about the both of you?
What's coming up for me is the nature of sales, targets, and quarters. So we drive through behaviors, the need to go and get a result now. And the data is that only 40% of sales teams are hitting quota, and it's worse in enterprise. So there's so much pressure on these CROs, businesses, investors. It's coming all the way down. The frontline rep who wants to play the long game and wants to build relationships and take the relationships with them can't, because they're feeling like they just have to go and show some results, because if not, they're going to lose their job. So I wonder how much of the ability to go and build the proper foundations of like the skill set and experience and behaviors to actually go and create the impact that you want, but also to actually go create the relationships that will produce the results that you dream of, are harder for someone who's in an environment where they're being judged by time and date driven success within a defined period, rather than if you do all the right things over enough time, the result will come, which is kind of like what you have to do is detach from the outcome. So I wonder what your thoughts are about that.
It's interesting you say that, because I feel as though it depends on the consciousness of the leader. It depends on the awareness of the leader. It depends on their energy, their mindset, how they are viewing things. Because if they're like, no, you need to make $200 a day every single day, well, that mindset that we're speaking about will get suffocated in an environment like that. And actually, the good news about that is, if you say you want to be a part of a team that's abundant, if you say you want to work with a leader who helps you grow, and if you say you want to have that long-term mindset and build authentic relationships, then whatever one's North Star is, the universe will bring those sort of people, obstacles and challenges to you instantly, because it's saying, okay, you said you want this. Now let's bring you a leader who's the complete opposite, so we can show you that actually you need to leave. So often, to go back to my original point, I think it all depends on the consciousness of the leader, because that's a trickle down to the rest of the team.
So you talk about abundance. I don't feel like that's a word we use a lot now. People who don't know, what do you mean by that? Because that's part of the book, right? Is coming from that abundance mindset. And actually, you can be generous because over time, the abundance will still come back, right? For people that they're not really familiar with it, because I don't feel like we talk about that a lot. What does that mean? What does that look like day to day coming from that mindset?
I'm actually curious. Why don't you feel we talk about it as much today?
Because I think that where we see abundance, right, is on Instagram, TikTok, whatever, where we see people flashing their abundance, right? I think most people who live normal lives, they're not thinking about abundance. They're thinking of scarcity. They're thinking, I don't have this, I don't have that. The price of this has gone up. I have less time to do that. I think that's where most people live. They see abundance as a really far off thing. I don't feel like that's really real to lots of people.
So there's a question that I talk about in the book. I don't know if you can remember it, but it's the idea that if you are in a conversation feeling a death grip on an outcome, asking yourself, hey, Ravi, if I was overflowing with abundance in every area of my life, how would I behave? And it's a nice little course correction, because you go, well, actually, if I in my health, I was just overflowing with vitality. Yeah. And in my relationship with my wife, everything was bliss. And my kids absolutely adore me. And then money is just, I've got everything I desire. How would I behave? And I talk about the delta between the two, the version of you here and the version of you who in that moment, or rather the version of you that is overflowing with abundance. That behavior, the difference, the delta, I really feel for often salespeople in those environments is huge. Right? Yeah. Because you need to hit X, or you need to do Y, or you need to do this, or whatever it could be. Once again, the consciousness of the leader is everything. Now, abundance, the way I see it, it's a good question. I'm thinking about it now in real time. How would I define it? I see it as the pillars that are important to you in your life, and I think they're different for different people, ensuring that, imagine if they represented a cup. Each pillar represented a cup, and they were overflowing with water. That's how I see it. So you were overflowing with goodness, with greatness, with everything you desire from not ego, but your authentic self in those pillars, aka cups. That's how I see it. But the challenge is, if I'm hanging around people in an office who are like, oh, did you hear what Mark said? Oh, marketing again, right? How can you tap into that feeling? It requires commitment, intentionality, presence, a real practice, because we complain about the external environment, but to be really present in a conversation, it requires maintenance of the internal environment. That's how I feel. If I've not done a cold plunge that day, or meditated, or got grounded, I feel it later on. I'm more reactive. And the definition of reactive, which I love, is from the spiritual wisdom of Kabbalah, which is any behavior or action that is grounded in lack, fear, or scarcity. So,
and that's reactive.
Reactive.
Wow.
So I think about it, all of us can be reactive. So I'll give an example, a leader walking into a meeting, grabbing a sandwich, right? Because they didn't get time to eat lunch. They're like, all right, Xander, so anyway, what's on the table for today? Instead of like, man, last week you told me that your daughter was sick and you had to take a day off. And it was stressful for you and your wife because she was also working as well. How are you both feeling about that? Is she better? That's such a different way to open up a conversation versus a lazy, how are you? I think how are you is lazy. In the right context, fine. Like if I meet you for the first time and I'm like, hey, in picture 98 on Facebook, you were in Mykonos in 2008. How was the trip? That's like weird, right? So it's context. But it goes back to that point of if you are feeling abundant, if you believe and have deep trust that everything is happening for you, not to you, then you will approach conversations in that way and be less reactive.
What's the opposite of reactive? What are people trying to be? Because it's not proactive, right? So what's the opposite then?
I would say presence. I would say presence is the opposite of reactive
Reactive.
behavior. Yeah.
Hmm.
Do you think that it's possible for people to build high quality relationships that last if they don't master that skill first?
High quality, long lasting relationships if they don't have presence. You can, but it would depend on one's definition of high quality and long lasting. So what's high quality to me may be very different to high quality for another person. So I'll give an example. You talk to some folks and high quality and long lasting is, you know what? I've met a person who can do something for me. They've been in my phone book for 10 years and we've done deals together.
Yeah.
Is that high quality and long lasting? Maybe for that person. So I'm not here to say that that is wrong or right. For me, for what I desire in my life, that would be required.
So when you're thinking from a sales context, how do you coach people or help them see what is high quality from a sales perspective?
So help me understand. Let's walk through a scenario. So what is that salesperson trying to achieve? Firstly,
let's say they're trying to achieve financial freedom. They're trying to achieve a certain career goal. Maybe it's like a certain financial attainment. Like that's why they're in sales fundamentally. They love helping people. They want to make a difference. They want to feel like they're having an impact.
Sure.
But they're kind of their measurement of whether they've achieved it will probably have some kind of like hard future state or achievement in their mind.
I received that. So how I would approach a conversation with somebody like that is I'm not a big fan of the word persuade or convince. Because that's like, hey man, my view of the world is right.
Yeah.
I need you to see it my way.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, I'm cool. So the idea for me is how can we hold both energies at the exact same time? So let's look at it as macro and micro. So do the micro. Do those things that you need to do. We can't let them go. Obviously, we need to do certain things to ensure that momentum is building in the short run. But let's not forget the long-term activities. And then what will happen, I can imagine, with the right person over time is that they will feel something occur in the long-term bucket. There'll be that relationship that they made 6 months ago, which they helped so-and-so do this without any self-interest. And then abundance, going back to our definition earlier, comes back to them in a financial sense where they win the biggest deal of their career because somebody referred them. Because they went up to this person, they said, here's what I think. You're actually not a fit for us. And here's why.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh my God, the prospect's like, I've never heard someone say that before because they prioritized the relationship.
Yeah.
They thought long term. And in the moment, they're like, damn it, if I just tried to convince and persuade, then maybe I would have won that deal, but maybe they would have churned at month 3.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They said, I'm going to own my truth. I'm going to think long term. Later on, they win the biggest referral. And then as a result, that creates evidence for the new story that we're trying to embed into that person's belief system because it starts to shift the way they see the world.
Yeah.
And then what we want to do is continue stacking the evidence to create more depth in that new story. Because what will happen is that salesperson, when things are hard, will revert back to, but I'm just going to go back to short term because that worked for me. So we need a new anchor.
Yeah.
We need to, when we do revert back to the mean, we want to ensure that the mean is that new story.
Yeah.
So stacking the evidence, I'll give you an example there, and I talk about it in the book. There was an individual who I mentored once who said that they delivered a speech at a wedding once and their version of it was they bombed.
Yeah.
So they have a view of the world now shaped on that experience, which is shifting how they show up at work, which is shifting their nervous system and how it feels going into a pitch, a presentation, or a speech. And what we needed to do was ask ourselves, hold on, is the story we're telling ourselves actually true? And what we're looking for is to create a small crack in that story. Even if it's like a small 1% crack, beautiful. Oh, actually, it's not true because my boss told me last week that actually I killed that speech. So hold hold on, and then engaging in new behaviors to support the new narrative with the idea that a proportion of these behaviors will turn into habits and then it will become instinctive. That's the idea. That's how I see it. What about the two of you?
I wonder how you help people to spot those either self-imposed labels or the labels that have been put on them maybe since childhood or by a leader. How do you help people to spot those labels that might be holding them back?
I love this. It goes back to conscious questions. And I'm a big believer in the idea that the depth of your questions dictates the depth of your relationships. But that also is dependent on the depth of your relationship with yourself. So if you don't ask yourself the difficult questions, the thought-provoking questions, the questions that stop you in your tracks, how can you do the same with others? So for me, it's about asking the questions which they haven't had the, what they would say, time to ask themselves because they are stuck in reactive behavior. They go every single day and they're lacking presence. So for me, for example, one thing I like to do very recently, I'll give you an example. Very recently, I had a client of mine he's a forensic toxicologist. So he has solved some of the UK's most high profile murders. And I'm helping him craft his signature presentation so that when he's on stages as an entrepreneur, he can teach those in sales and entrepreneurship how to ask the right questions and think like a toxicologist, but actually apply those principles in business. So anyway, at the start of our coaching sessions, we do some breath work. We really just regulate our nervous system to get grounded, and then we get into the nitty gritty. How many times have you been in a one-to-one with a leader and you're like, right, we've got 26 minutes left. Go. You finish at the end. You're like, wow, I'm sweating. I've got 50 things on my to-do list. And for me, it's just about slowing everything down. Slowing everything down, getting grounded, and trying to operate from a regulated nervous system. It's interesting. I started working with a functional health team and coach in the United States back in 2024. And my coach said something to me, which I'll never forget. She said, Ravi, you want to operate like an athlete, but you're not recovering like one. And I was like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean? Tell me more. And she was saying the challenge with a lot of people who label themselves as ambitious and high performers is that they're stuck in the sympathetic nervous system. So they go, and that becomes their default. What happens? They crash. They burn out. Right? But it's about also being able to recover and get into the parasympathetic. So I've been on a journey with that, and it's been beautiful, but it's also understanding that you need to recover effectively, and you need to operate from a grounded place and a regulated place. You know, I always believe that the most effective leader is the regulated leader, is the grounded leader, right?
Regulators.
Yeah.
Warren G.
Yeah, exactly. Let's trademark that. Let's trademark it.
I wonder how often it is that someone, almost like with kind of when they seek therapy, have to have hit crisis. So to reach the point where they're going, I really need to look after myself and ask the introspective questions and make some proper behavioral changes, is because they've burned out. So how often when you're coaching people, have they reached a point of being lost and feeling burned out, and then you help them to rebuild? Or are people capable of getting ahead of that to save themselves from doing that so they can show up in the world as they want to be?
I'll give you an example. Earlier this year, I was delivering a corporate workshop on storytelling, effective communication, all that good stuff. The biggest mistake I or anybody, I believe, could make in a moment like that is presenting to everybody in the room as if they are the most aware. Meaning, if you take a look at Eugene Schwartz's 1966 book, Breakthrough Advertising, there's a concept within it, and it's called the 5 stages of awareness. Maybe we've heard about it, right? Isn't it?
I have, it's not stuck, and it would have been years ago. So I'm looking forward to this.
Right. So it's the idea that there are different stages of awareness a human being goes through. They start off as unaware, which is like I don't even know if I've got a problem. Who are you? Right? And then it's problem aware. Okay, I get it. I got a problem. It's not hurting too much, but I got a problem. And then it's the idea of being solution aware, which is, okay, there's different solutions out there which can solve my problem. And I'm pretty sure the fourth one is product aware, which is awareness of your product.
Yeah.
Don't quote me on that one. But the final one is most aware, which is like, I'm ready. I know I've got a problem. I recognize the magnitude of it. I know the solutions in the market. I know what you have. I just need to feel like you're my trusted guide.
Yeah.
And most people present to human beings as if they are most aware, because they are judging everybody on their level of consciousness in that moment. It's like me saying to my 3-year-old, why can't you go on stage and deliver a story for night? It's like, whoa, come on, Dad. Like, it's not there yet, right?
Yeah.
So the idea here is we need to take people through a trust building journey when we speak, as well as an awareness journey, a structured awareness journey. And I often feel human nature is that we don't really come to another human being until we're like, oh, I'm broken down. I'm like this, or I'm like that. But what's the best way to put it? Once you've been through a moment like that, I feel like it becomes a choice.
Yeah.
Where you get to say, I know what happened last time. I want to shift the narrative for myself, and I'm going to be proactive in this moment. I'll give an example. The individual that maybe struggled with their health and they received treatment, or they've gone to see a functional health doctor or doctor, and they get better for whatever it is. But then they go back to their old habits. That's one way to do it. Or you go, you know what? I know I need to get my bloods done. I'm going to go get my bloods done because I want to be proactive. But in answer to your question, people come to me at different stages, I would say. However, I'm very respectful of the idea that the ones who are most aware, or rather most aware, they are 2 to 3% of that room in any given moment. So it's about detaching from the idea that I need to be their guide. If I do become their trusted guide, cool, great. And if not, that's cool too. But my job is to build trust and take them on that structured awareness journey.
Yeah. And qualifying out if they just want the quick fix. Because one of the first things that stood out from your book was you're going, look, if you're here for a hacks, like close it down.
Yes.
If you want instant gratification, then this isn't going to be the book for you. Or maybe come back tomorrow, no judgment.
Yes.
So how much of what you're doing is you kind of like elegantly push people away until they're in the state of mind to actually come and be receptive to learn.
With the book, it's interesting because there are moments in the book where I say this in this moment. And there is a part of me as I was writing it, which I went, somebody's going to skip to this chapter and say, what do I say in this moment? That's life. Somebody's going to do that. But I intentionally made sure people don't get the juice until they've done certain things.
Sure.
And that's frustrating to some, but hey, being contrarian is what cuts through the noise, I think, in today's world. So, but I do believe a lot of my work and time, if I'm speaking or having a conversation, is spent asking the right questions, telling the right stories, and ensuring somebody has awareness of the problem, if they've got one, the magnitude of it, and what will happen if things stay exactly as they are without sounding like a bad commercial, right? Which can be tricky.
Question.
Sure.
Were you always good at asking questions? Because, you talked about when I inhaled the Financial Times and I wrote down questions.
Right.
Were you just always good at writing questions and asking questions and thinking about things that way? Or is it something that you've learned? Because I think when we think about conscious questions, there's an art to that. There's a skill to it. It doesn't just always happen. So what was that journey like for you? Was that something you learned or you just knew how to do?
I would say it's been a journey.
Okay.
It's been a journey. I remember early on in corporate, there was a leader I had at the time, and he said, Ravi, can I see you for a sec? I'm like, oh, what's he going to say? He goes, listen, you're doing great. Like, I really like your energy, and you clearly just want to do well so badly. Like, I really like that. But when I give an instruction, you're thinking about how to action things versus deeply listening in this moment. We need to work on that. And he was right, because in that moment I wanted to impress so badly. I got snippets of what needed to be done. I was like, I'm going to get this done quick, and I want to impress me, versus asking the right questions to ensure that it won't take twice as long, and to also show a character of intentionality. So those are one of several moments where, by the way, that's reactive behavior, is it not? Right? Me in that moment going, I just want to get this done. I just want to get this done. Me. I just want to look great. I just want to look great. I want you to like me. Right? That's reactive behavior in that moment. So it's been a journey, but one thing that my close friends would even say, for example, from growing up, I would sit, ask the right questions and whatnot, but it's been a journey where I would say it's something that I realized was important very early on. There were hiccups along the way. However, the presence grew over the years, which made the questions that I believe that I asked more potent over time.
Because what I'm trying to think of is if someone's listening and they're recognizing that, look, I don't ask great questions. What are some of the practical things they can start to do? Because like you said, you've developed this skill over time as well. What are some of the things that they can start practicing to get better at asking conscious questions?
Brilliant. So step one would be, let's not think about how we can ask great questions now. Let's think about what we can do the night before or the morning of to get grounded. So even if it's something for 3 minutes, maybe it's a walk in the morning. Maybe it's an exercise of you cleaning the house, but you're mindful and you're present in that moment and you're thinking about nothing else. You're not listening to a podcast. You're not listening to a song. There's no phone. It can be any activity that you're doing, but you're truly connected to it. So let's start with something like that. Step two would be, take a look maybe at a call, because we're thinking about salespeople here, are we not? So maybe think about reviewing a call recording of yours and actually watching yourself and reviewing the game tape. Where did I engage in reactive behavior? Could I have gone deeper here? And actually, that's one of the key things that I often see is we get happy ears, we get the answer, but we don't question it because it fulfills our version of what we want to hear in that moment. So we don't go, speak to that for a second, or, you know, you said this thing here. Can you tell me more about that? Because we know our boss wants to hear X and we get to deliver X in the meeting tomorrow. So review the game tape. The third thing is, I would introduce somebody to the concept of a story-worthy question, which is a type of conscious question. And a conscious question being, for pure simplicity, any question that's grounded in positive intentionality. Meaning, I can ask you a question that on the face of it is positive, but it's grounded in me leading you towards a very specific outcome. That's not positive intentionality, that's negative. So positive intentionality. Now, one type of conscious question is a story-worthy question, as I call it, AKA an open-ended question. There's a time and place for an open-ended question, aka story-worthy question, or a closed-ended question, a fact-worthy question. So if you're dealing with the legals, you can't be like, hey, so when was the time? It's kind of like bang, bang, bang. We need to have some fact-worthy questions here, right? Yeah. But in a conversation with somebody, let's say somebody's speaking to a supplier. They say, okay, I need to ask a question. So do you want to switch suppliers? Yeah. You're going to receive a one-word response. Or you could say, Tolu, could you tell me about the moment when you first sensed trouble with your existing supplier? So that opens it up for you to do two things. Number one is, oh man, yes, it was last year in December and then we got hit with this invoice. It's 20% above normal. And I'm thinking, what? I thought we had it. Now I'm receiving a story. I'm extracting a story in an organic way. The second is the Holy Grail, though, which is when he pauses, is silent. I think there's something wrong with the phone. And it's because I've asked him a question that he hasn't been asked before. And it's provoked thought. And that tells somebody a positive story about you because it shows you have a certain type of character. That's the Holy Grail. Now, that's where I would begin, is start opening up questions and then going deeper. So often, this is a classic, maybe you've experienced this, being on the receiving end, but you admit you've got a challenge. And the person goes, well, I'm glad you said that, Tolu. I'm glad you said that, Rich, because actually we have a client just like, and it's like, yes, here it goes. Here it goes. Versus somebody going deeper, tell me more about that. And then once again, tell me more about that. I would say when I'm teaching, for example, what I call a social proof story, if somebody's embedding that in a conversation, they're not allowed to do that. They've got to go through a certain process of going deeper and deeper. And to begin with, it will feel forced. Oh, okay, I've got to go deep 3 times and then only I can share a story. But as they graduate the conscious competence learning ladder with the skill, it becomes instinctive and it feels less clunky and awkward.
Yeah.
And then they have earned the opportunity, if it makes sense to do so, to share the social proof story. And the interesting thing is, if you look at Robert Cialdini's work from decades ago, it still holds that human beings, when they are uncertain, they look outside of themselves for validation. How many times when the both of you have gone through something, do you pick up the phone to Steve? Steve, man, like, I've got this thing, I've got this problem. What do you think? And maybe you deep down already know the answer intuitively, but you need permission from Steve.
Yeah, sure.
You're right. So it's often what we see when somebody is thinking about what supplier should I go for. That social proof story can act as Steve in that moment, but you need to earn the opportunity to share the narrative about Steve.
Yeah.
You mentioned about conscious questions, and you mentioned that story-worthy is one of them. So what I wanted to ask is, what are the other ones?
Sure.
And when we're thinking about salespeople, how would they naturally start to weave those into the process? And what's the kind of good balance that you've seen?
Here's a bad balance. I used to have a friend, okay? So good at asking questions. You'd meet him and you'd be like, this guy is brilliant. He just asked the most impactful questions. You'd meet him once, this guy's brilliant. You meet him twice, this guy's fantastic. You meet him the 3rd time and you go, I better ask him a question. You ask him a question and he'd be like, yeah. Anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about you.
Yeah.
Deflect. So what would happen is when you asked a question to them, they were actually using questions as a coping strategy for not allowing you to see them for who they really are.
Wow.
So it can actually be, for lack of a better word, weaponized in any moment. Or rather, weaponized actually is the wrong word, but use it as a coping strategy.
Like a defense mechanism.
Or weaponized, for sure. But in this moment, a coping strategy, defense mechanism. So that's actually fascinating. That's a bad balance where you don't let anybody in. But that doesn't allow for reciprocity. And a relationship is about reciprocity. I think about my friends. I think about one in particular. We bonded because of just madness at work. We were both experiencing chaos, and that trauma bonded us, right? But it was that reciprocity of I'm feeling this, what are you feeling, and having that exchange. But when it's one way, it stunts connection.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the same? Because there are some people who will just happily talk about themselves all the time. Do you think that's like everybody? Do you think everybody needs that reciprocity at a point?
So I think what we're actually talking about here are, I'd say, this is really interesting, but I see them as 2 different things personally. So one is somebody dominating a conversation through the spoken word. The other is somebody allowing somebody else to dominate the conversation and just asking questions. But actually, both could be grounded in a story of, I'm just spitballing here, I'm not enough.
Yeah.
But the manifestation of it is 2 different behaviors. But in society, we will say, well, the person asking questions is more virtuous.
Because they're listening.
And maybe the person who's actually talking and interrupting a conversation, actually, maybe they're neurodivergent.
Yeah.
We just assume everyone thinks like us, operates like us. So I think that's really fascinating, that concept. But to go back to what you said, just so I'm understanding the question, is it, why does someone talk so much and how can we stop that? Or could you?
No. So it's just, we're talking about reciprocity.
Sure.
And I feel like sometimes some people don't care if you reciprocate. right? So they might be happy to take the fact that you just listen to them, you just ask them questions.
Yeah.
It might not even impact your relationship. Because interested versus interesting could kind of be the same thing. Like if we were having a conversation and I just asked you questions to be interested about you, some people might not even care that they don't know anything about me. They'll walk over and going, Tolly really cool. He listened to me, like I liked him, So that's what I was trying to understand with your reciprocal point. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Everybody has a different language of service, is what I feel. So if I'm opening up to a friend, you better not be hitting me with unsolicited advice, right? Like, I met an acquaintance recently. We're talking, we're having fun. You got a really young kid and she's going to be going to school soon. I'm like, yeah, probably about next year. I'm going to cry my eyes out, man. On the first day she goes to school. Here's exactly what you need to do. Here's exactly what you need to think about. And I'm like, I'm switching off, right? Internally, I'm switching off. Because my language of service, how I like to be served in that moment would have been conscious questions, listening. Sometimes I do want advice, but I will say, hey, here's what would be the most supportive in this moment.
Yeah.
So I think everybody has a different language of service. And some people, for example, when they're going through something, are verbal processors.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some people operate completely differently. Like even in our relationships, you two are married. You don't have to say this out loud, but I can almost guarantee there has been moments when you've gone, right, I'm doing something really nice for my partner. And they receive it. And maybe you don't receive the reaction you desire because their language of service is something completely different. You're like, they appreciate me just, it's not a hug they desire. It's actually keeping the space clean.
Yeah.
Because actually that helps them declutter their mind and that's what they want. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. So I feel as though everybody has a different language of service, but it's our job to understand what that is.
So then we
in our
need
conversation partner.
Reciprocity in the way that they would best receive it.
Right.
Also, have you been speaking to my wife?
I think our wives have been coordinating, to be honest.
The love languages.
Yeah.
What's been coming to my mind is something that comes up consistently, particularly the feedback that Tolu gets from guests, which is that people go, I love talking to you because it felt like therapy. And I think our audience is typically founders and leaders. I know we're talking a lot about sales leaders because they're the people that we coach and we will bin them. And, maybe there's some sales people listening too. But it's often founders and leaders who haven't had someone asking those deep questions because their job is to have the answers. Their job is to ask the questions. The job is to be confident at all times, not really show the vulnerability. Even if we talk about wanting to be vulnerable, you show a bit of weakness in a business that's not got the right culture at the top and it's not perceived in the right way. So a lot of the time when people come on the podcast and we ask them questions that are different from what they're being asked, it could be as simple as I had a founder the other day. I asked them, how are you? Which I know is like a bad question, but in the right context.
Context. Yeah.
And he literally paused and went, no one's asked me that for ages. And I was like, wow. And it said a lot. So I just wonder how, if people, leaders particularly, they're in the pattern of having the answers, feeling like they need to know the answers, asking the questions, they haven't got a maybe support network around them where people are asking them the questions that help them to think differently and to process information so they can actually kind of get out of that reactive behavior. So what's coming to mind as I'm describing that?
What's coming to mind is two things. Is I would ask that individual, or I would be asking myself, what am I trying to protect by not seeking out those who can ask me the difficult questions? Because often the protection of one's image and ego can prevent us from going to that support group or going to that sales leadership event where it's Chatham House rules and information is not going anywhere, but you can't show up vulnerable because you need to look like a superhero wherever you go. So I would ask myself that question, just be real about it. The second is maybe you can ask a question to receive a question. Meaning, imagine asking your team, hey, what is one thing that you've seen inside of the business over the past month that has made you feel unsupported? Oh, Ravi, it was this time when you said you were going to come to the meeting with me, but actually something came up and you didn't. But you didn't message me. It was just a quick Slack, and actually that felt unsupportive. So then the question back is, what led to that lack of congruency between my promise and the behavior? So it's asking the question to receive the question.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Because I just wonder, it's like the people that you're coaching, you obviously talked a lot about working with entrepreneurs. You mentioned a few leadership examples within the book.
Sure.
Do you think do people struggle with that? Do people just come to you and it's like they kind of want help, but they don't really know the sort of questions to ask? I just wonder, like, if you think of specific examples of people who come to you wanting help with something, and maybe I should ask you what's the something that people come to you and want help with? But is it something that people struggle with?
Asking for help, or
how, like, knowing what sort of even questions to ask? They kind of come going, I feel this way.
Yeah.
I'm frustrated. I'm not getting the results that I'm looking for. I don't really know what to ask. I just kind of like, help me.
Yes, I'm with you. For me, people would come to me in the realms of communication, storytelling, and presentation skills and public speaking. That's the domain I play in. So I'll give you an example. I had an individual, a leader, who I spoke to yesterday about the potential of working together. But often what can happen is somebody may hear me speak, or they hear a piece of content and they gravitate towards my energy, which, by the way, will repel some and attract others, and that's a good thing. But those who are connected to it and attracted by it, they will say, okay, you know, I want to have a conversation with you about so-and-so. But often they don't know what the so-and-so is. They just have this feeling that, I know there's something I need to work on, I just don't know what. What I like to do is run through an exercise to illuminate blind spots. So one thing that is quite a fun exercise, and by the way, I used to do this when I was a sales leader with my team, and it caused an uproar at the beginning and then they loved it by the end, which was, you know, we have a black bag or a table and we'd have, say, 10 objects on it. And in this room, I'm looking at a candle. For those listening, I'm looking at a candle. And I could say to one of the guys here, and I'm not going to, but I could say, hey, here's a candle. It's worth $1. Your job is to think of a fictitious story in 30 seconds or 60 seconds. Let's give you 60 seconds. You've got to come up with a fictitious story about this candle, and your job is to raise its value in the eyes of the audience to $1,000. And you've only got 60 seconds to share it. Timer starts now, right? Now what I'm learning is how one behaves in high stakes moments. Because it's really easy to say, yeah, I think this is the problem, or I don't have any problems. But if they're willing to get on the call with me, then they're also going to be willing to engage in an exercise like this. And there's no judgment. It's fun, welcoming mishaps, mistakes, all of that good stuff. But by the end of it, a question I'll ask is, hey, what did you love about what you just did? But if you could run it back one more time, what would you do differently? And that's when the self-awareness starts to kick in. And often the answers start coming to them about what they would need to work on in a given moment. And then I would say, hey, are you open to hearing my perspective? Because I know sometimes people may not be necessarily open to it. Are you open to hearing my unfiltered perspective? Yeah, I would love to. Here are 3 things that are coming up for me in this moment. I don't want to overwhelm. Here are 3 things. Because 3 is the lowest number of elements required for the human brain to form a pattern. Right? The first 2 set up the expectation. The third makes it or breaks that pattern. So 3 little pigs, 3 wise men. It's sticky. It's memorable. The 3 allows for enhanced recall. So once they leave that room, it's like, oh, okay, I remember Ravi gave me these 3 things. So I'll give them the 3 things to think about. But that would then give us the roadmap of, if we're specifically talking about storytelling, hey, here's what I would prescribe, given everything I've seen. But also they've seen it as well. And for leaders in an organization, that is vulnerable. So I'll never forget this. There is an organization who I partnered with, who I recently finished up partnering with, but I partnered with them for a few years. Their leaders were fantastic. Never seen anything like it. So their main leader, the one who was, for lack of a better phrase, at the top of the food chain, if we were doing something, he would lead. He would go to the front of the room. He would have done that exercise. I remember I brought in an acting coach to work with them on how to deliver a script with authenticity. And him and another leader were like the first to get in the room, and just, they weren't loving it, facts, but they were like, I need to show up powerfully and give other people permission. So they would do it. And it was vulnerable, but they did it. And I've just not seen something like that, because you often feel, a leader feel as though if I look a certain way and if I don't look like the superhero, then people will not follow my command, my word.
Makes sense.
But people will, just like our children, we know, people will do what you do, not what you say.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, and no one wants to be told what they should do, which is one of the gaps with AI.
Oh.
Tells us what we should do, but
Right.
it doesn't bring people on the journey. I just wonder what your take is on that. Like, obviously, a lot of people go now to AI
Yeah.
for advice. And I wonder what you see as the problem that causes.
I don't know yet. I can't speak for anyone else, but I can speak for me,
Yeah.
which is what's true for me in this moment, which is a deviation from your question. But what feels true for me in this moment is when it comes to a book, there are companies now who are saying you can write an entire book in a weekend using AI.
Yeah.
My struggle with that is you may receive the end result, but you don't become the type of person you need to become to hold that end result.
Yeah.
So if somebody said to the listener right now, hey, I could give you a 6-pack in a week, boom, you do it. But then once again, if you receive something overnight, it can leave you overnight because you don't have the character to hold it. So now we're closing the loop on what we said at the beginning. And that's my fear, is that our desire for instant gratification leads to reactive behavior, putting in certain prompts to get the end result, outsourcing our creative thinking, not using it as a creative partner, and then not sharpening our character along the way so we can actually become the type of human being who's resilient, who can face challenges and think under pressure when it actually matters. That's my fear.
Yeah. I've got a feeling that's going to be a damn good clip. But it's, you've like articulated so perfectly what I've been trying to describe, which is we go for the answer, but it's not the partner that helps us maybe challenge the thinking. And it's one of the problems with how AI is built, particularly certain platforms, which is they're so blimmin' agreeable, and they make you go, oh, I'm right about everything. And it's only when you have context that you go, I know it's BS.
Right. And actually, what I found, and I am in no way an AI expert, I'm immersing more so now, immersing myself into Claude, etc., trying to use it more effectively. But what I do know is the strength that it takes to say, actually, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Because it can be so nice to go, wow, this has the answers. Right? And it understands me.
Yeah.
It gets me. And what I found myself, I'll give you an example, actually. So I was delivering a speech for a conference called AdCon. Have you ever heard of it?
Yeah.
So that was earlier this year. And I had I have a 60-minute set signature presentation. We can go into it shortly, but I have a signature presentation. Now, I have a story that is a part of that 60-minute set, which takes up roughly 15% to 20% of that talk time. Now I've got 30 minutes on stage. So I didn't want to shift out the story for a new one because I felt it felt right for the moment, but now I needed to condense it. So I started chopping it up. So I went into Claude and I deliver it out loud in a voice note, but I ask it to embody the mindset of a speech coach for Obama, and it gave me certain feedback. And I was like, okay, some of it actually good. I like this. Then there was a large proportion of it where I was like, no, because actually it doesn't have the context on this, and actually this missing this. The challenges to the untrained eye, that would be brilliant. Yeah. So when I'm whacking, so I'm talking about untrained eye, like me typing in stuff about my health. I'm lucky I've got my coach where I say, hey, what about this? And she's like, no. She's like, that's AI saying this. So there's certain things it's beautiful for, but I'm mindful of the fact that it has blind spots.
You still need discernment.
Yeah, you still need discernment. That's it. Yeah. You still need discernment.
Yeah, I love it. You mentioned presentations, and you've got this, 60-minute. I like the fact that you described it as a set. That's quite cool. And you talk about storytelling. I know that it's one of the things that people have been coming to you recently, is asking for help with like how to go and create and present, high impact presentations. Tell us a bit more about that work that you're doing.
So going back to what you said about a signature set, I was watching one of the late shows in the United States. I don't know if it was Jimmy Kimmel or is it Fallon?
Yeah.
One of the Jimmys. And Kevin Hart's on there from a couple of years back. And he said, Jimmy, it takes me 12 to 18 months to craft one 60-minute set. And the idea was he takes it to low stakes environments first, underground comedy clubs, randomly shows up, does the material, works out the kinks, and then he graduates to Madison Square Gardens.
Yeah.
So why can it not be the same for speakers, executives, entrepreneurs who need to share their message in a way that's influential and impactful without winging it? Because I feel what happens is most people wing it. They work on the slides. They work on all of the things that our logical mind tells us to do. And it ends up not doing their expertise justice. So the idea behind a signature talk and a signature set is one repeatable asset that you can have, which presents your story, message, and expertise in a way that makes people lean in a way that makes people say, I trust you. And in a way that makes people say, you know what? Like, what do you do? I want to learn more about that. And inside of the book, I talk about the 3 C's of trust. Now, the book is about how to build trust in a conversation, but you can actually use the 3 C's of trust, in a presentation. So to recap for folks who haven't read the book yet, the 3 C's of trust is connection, competence, and character. So connection being the emotional glue that bonds 2 human beings together. Competence meaning your ability to signal expertise without shoving it down somebody's throat, and in turn it increasing or decreasing your credibility stock. And then character, meaning the invisible values that travel with your energy, your non-verbal communication, and your spoken word. In a presentation, what we're looking to do in 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 35 minutes, 60 minutes is take people through a sequence which is also not just a structured awareness journey, but a trust building journey. So we begin with connection, we then showcase competence, and we end by displaying a character of integrity. And how we do that is through 6 Lego blocks, what I call it. And I won't go through each one in depth, but 6 Lego blocks. Why Lego blocks? Well, the idea here is and maybe you've been there, maybe you've been to a conference, or you've heard somebody at your leadership offsite come on stage and it's like, well, I'd just like to say thank you to the organizers for having me. And, after decades, nobody cares. Nobody cares, right? And it teaches you how the rest of the presentation is going to go. And it sucks for everybody. And they verbal vomit their stories, their accolades, their awards, their achievements, which are all different Lego blocks, but it's just a complete mess.
Yeah.
So the idea is 6 Lego blocks. 2 for connection, 2 for competence, 2 for character. We begin by sparking human connection, Lego block 1, through a story. We then state our promise, which is road mapping our talk, telling people what they're going to get by the end of our time together. Then we head into competence, Lego block 3, which is unveiling the villain. which is really telling people what is the villain in their story. In our conversation today, it's been instant gratification. And then unveiling the antidote as Lego block 4, your signature framework, your 3 steps to X, your 5 steps to Y, whatever it could be. And then we head into character, which is displaying a character of intention and integrity. So Lego block 5, and this is going to be a fire hose, but just stay with me, audience. Lego block 5 is making an invitation, asking that thought-provoking question, sharing how people can go deeper with you, whatever it could be. And then you end with Lego block 6 by anchoring your message. Maybe it's through another story, an anecdote, a quote, whatever it could be, to really drive home your core message. So when people go home, they go, oh, did you hear Rich's talk? It was about this.
Yeah.
Oh, did you hear Tolu's talk? It was about making your mess your message. And people can go home with that quote-worthy line about your talk that deeply resonated with them, and also travels in rooms that you're not a part of. And we can go deeper into all of those, but actually my curiosity is, what's one of those Lego blocks which resonates the most that we could touch upon?
I mean, I love the fact that you anchor with something at the end that they're going to hold on to. Because I think most people focus so much on the start and the core message,
yes,
but very, very lazy in thinking like, how do I want someone to feel at the end? And what do I want someone to know about me? And I know that for everyone, when we're describing conversations, when we're not there, it probably comes down to a word. Oh, he's the relationship guy. He's the podfather guy.
Yes. Yeah.
He's the, the other guy.
Yeah.
And so I for me, that's really powerful. And I wonder, what are some of the recipe to building that last anchoring block so it becomes deeply memorable, and ideally could be described just very, very quickly by someone, even if it was months ago that they last went to that event.
I'll use brevity here because I know time is of the essence. But one thing I did in a speech I delivered last week, I started with a story. Now, the arc that I used is I begin with a hook, then I share the context, the conflict, the change, and the conclusion. And then I say a magic phrase, which is, hey, here's why this matters to you, which acts as a bridge to me basically saying, hey, this story, here's a moral of it, but here's why it's actually important for our conversation today. It's the connective tissue. So it becomes an audience-centric story. It's not a story to give myself significance. It's the story to make my audience feel significant. So I'll say that again. It's to ensure that my story doesn't make me look significant. It's to ensure my story makes others feel significant.
Almost like you're the narrator and they're the hero.
Exactly. And one thing I did was I shared the hook, I shared the context, I shared the conflict, I shared the moment of change, but then I stopped and I went straight to the impact. So I left people with a question mark in their minds, the open loop, which is, what happened? I want to know. So then at the end, anchoring my message, I could have ended it in several ways, but how I decided to end it was closing that open loop. It's like, you know that dude who was stuck feeling X, Y, Z? Here's what happened. Here's why this matters to you.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I will share a very short 1-line, 2-line, which leaves them with hopefully a mic drop moment that embodies my core message, but also lets them know, leaves them with something to think about way after I'm gone.
I wonder, because what you described there in terms of that sort of storytelling framework and bringing in the conflict, it's like how a lot of movies are built, right? So I wonder, like, is there a movie or or maybe it's a director that you've taken some of this inspiration from, or maybe there's a famous example of a movie that comes to mind where they followed that structure of like giving you the answer right at the end that made you go, aha.
I'll flip this because this is what first came up for me is, have you ever seen the recent Conor McGregor documentary?
No, not yet.
They put you straight in the chaos at the beginning and they reverse engineer from there.
Okay.
That's quite an interesting way to do it. Like drop you in the chaos to get the attention.
Yeah.
And then they reverse engineer from there and they come back to it later on. I think it's when he like broke his ankle or something like that. I can't remember. But a very popular story arc, Will Smith before the slap, talks about it in his book, which was brilliant, an audiobook if you resonate with audiobooks and Will Smith. But he talks about the hero's journey.
Yeah.
A lot of people resonate with that story arc. In a conversation, my truth is that can be difficult to implement in a conversation, you know, all these micro steps. So how can we keep it simple? But a movie that I love for storytelling is Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. Just epic. And my wife is like, this is the 1700th time you've watched it. Even when I came back from the US last week, or went there rather, on the way there, I watched The Dark Knight Rises. So I feel like I learned something new about the storyline every single time. And I just think he's brilliant. Yeah. And even from like the Hans Zimmer soundtrack, I mean, it's just incredible. He's just storytelling at its finest.
Through your lens of storytelling, what do you observe within the Dark Knight series that someone else can hold on to and maybe look out for next time they watch it?
One observation is that Bruce Wayne talks about how the mask that he wears is designed to protect the people he loves. But actually, if you start to notice, the real mask is Bruce Wayne. Wow. And it's really fascinating. So it's something I just find interesting. That's the way I see it. Is like, wow, actually the real mask is Bruce Wayne. And I remember, where did I stumble upon this? I was geeking out and I was doing some Google search about Dark Knight, some of the stories behind
Not
it.
again, Ravi.
Yeah, Reddit, my own Reddit thread. I don't know where it was, but somebody mentioned that aha moment. I wish I could give credit to them. I don't know who it was, but that slapped me. And I watch the movies through that lens now, and I'm like, that is a fantastic observation. That the real mask is Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. It makes me think of movies like Tarantino, the classic example where he finishes at the end and you're like, how on earth did it get to that point? And it is, I think maybe we could take a lot from films. When Jacob first introduced you as like a person that I should definitely go and speak with, he talks about, was it a Disney framework where about the conflict? Like when so maybe bring it back to brass tacks, when you were when you're teaching storytelling, like what's something practical that we could do? Yeah. To embed that classic story structure, to make it highly memorable, but also flow beautifully.
So I'll give something very simple. So I have you can have it, you can see it in the book, or you can see it even in the content that I talk about. You don't have to buy the book at all, but there's a difference between the story arc and the story framework. So a story arc sits in the story framework. So in the book, for example, I talk about hook, story, impact, and if you want, conscious question at the end. But hook, story, impact is really the core elements of that story framework. Yeah. But the story arc within it is context, conflict, change, conclusion. Okay. So to wrap people's head around that, let's run through it. Yeah. So the Incy Wincy spider went up the water spout. Yeah. Context. Yeah. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Conflict. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain. Change. Incy Wincy spider. They went up the spout again. Conclusion. So that's like one line, right? Yeah. But the idea here is we introduce the main character and their desire in the context. In the conflict, we introduce the obstacle, which is preventing them from receiving their desire. And then the change is the aha moment that shifts everything. And then the conclusion is how they go from pain to glory. Yeah. And in a nutshell, if you just start thinking like that and embed those 4 steps into your storytelling, it'll be really clean. And one thing you can do at home, maybe at the dinner table, is have your kids or wife or husband pick out a random item in the room, and you have to tell a fictitious story about that using that framework. And what will start happening over time, it'll feel awkward. You'll want to quit the first time. By the 50th time, you'll go, this is easy. And then you'll start playing around with not just what you say, but the way in which you say it. Because it's not just about what you say, it's how you say it, right? We could go on, but I would say that is one thing to think about.
Yeah. Can you tell us one last story before we finish?
Yes.
In the book, the opening line after dance class.
I knew you were going to come back to this. Go on.
You said that your big secret of being a Backstreet Boy backup dancer was leaked somehow. What was the story about?
It's actually Britney Spears. But that was my first ever CD that I bought. Hit Me Baby One More Time. How crazy is that? I'll never forget that. Anyway.
We've actually got Britney Spears.
Oh my God, dream. That would be so good. I wish I knew all the dance moves, but I really don't. But so in the book, for those of you that are unaware, in the first chapter, I talk about my mum literally shoving me into the same dance school as my little sister.
You have to do the voice.
Yeah. I can't. Yeah. I will at the end. We'll run it back at the end. Mum, this is a bad impression of you. All right? It doesn't sound like you, I promise. But the idea was that, well, not even the idea, the reality was that she literally shoved me into the same dance school as my little sister, but she was Miyagiing me, right? Wax on, wax off. She was secretly exposing me to the art of storytelling, stage presence, and being comfortable in that environment. And it was the biggest gift I've ever received, period. The biggest gift. But the challenge was that internally, I was like, oh, this is quite cool. Like being on the stage, why does this feel cool? But I was secretly so embarrassed because back then, at 9 years old, no dude in my school was in dance. Like NSYNC weren't out, Backstreet Boys weren't out. Like it wasn't cool. It just was not a thing.
Yeah.
So I was trying to keep it under wraps at all costs. And I thought I was doing a good job. I thought I was doing such a good job. Every Saturday, I'd sneak over to this class in the morning. People would be like, what do you do on the weekend? Oh, nothing much. I did this, did that. It was under wraps. And one assembly, I'll never forget. This girl stands up to receive an award for dance. She was in the same dance school as me. She stands up. She receives the award. She accepts the award so graciously. And at the end, she delivers a mic drop moment. She says, oh, and by the way, Ravi Rajani is in our dance school.
For no reason. Just catches
Her name is Christy. I'm outing you. I still remember your name. I know your surname, but I'm not going to out you. I was mortified. And it was like the whole room looked at me like, what? And I was like, oh, yeah. Right? Mortified. And that was how it got out. That was exactly how it got out. And I still remember it decades later. Where there's tension in a story, there's attention that you pay to it. And the level of recall is significantly higher, as you've just learned.
She gave you the conflict in the story, though, right?
She gave me the
What a
conflict.
gift.
Yeah, it was a gift. It was a gift. It really was a gift because, you know what? If we consistently hide the parts of us that make us who we are and we start practicing it and we receive growth from that, it's dangerous, right? Fine, I was 9, but there's really a gift there was a gift in it for sure. So Christy, you're okay.
Again, and we have actually spent the last 2 months hunting down Christy.
Oh my God. Oh, I still remember her face. So yeah, I should look her up, see what she's doing these days. Yeah.
Amazing. What's a final thought that you would like to leave our listeners with today, Ravi?
Final thought would be this. If you have listened to this podcast episode in its entirety, subscribe. Drop the guys a review because they've done such an incredible and intentional job, and I really appreciate that. It's so fun to do something in person. Yeah. And your questions have been incredible. And what a way to make somebody feel seen. I mean, these guys listened to and read my book inside out more than twice. And just, thank you for being so intentional. I really appreciate that.
Pleasure.
But what I would like to leave them with is, if you have listened to this in its entirety, if you walk away from this and do nothing, that's just you getting info beast.
Yeah.
Right?
Info beast.
So action one thing. And that one thing would be, today, take an item in your room, flick your camera on, and tell a 60-second story, fictitious story about that item and try and raise its value. Watch it back and it will tell you a story of where you're at with the art of storytelling.
Amazing. Ravi, thank you so much. This was brilliant.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Everyone else, we'll see you on the next episode.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed the show. And listen, if you did, then can you do me a little favor? Can you hit the subscribe button and leave a review for the What Makes You Tick show?
Thanks so much for joining us for the What Makes You Tick podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I enjoyed having the conversation.
Yeah, there's so much value in hearing other people's career stories. And if you're someone focused on growing in your own career, check out our Growth Magnet newsletter on LinkedIn. We'll put a link in the show notes.
And we will see you on the next episode.